Let the stories carry you into sleep. After 42 years of marriage, she slipped away in a hospice bed just 8 months after the cancer showed up in her left breast. My wife died on a Thursday. I died the next morning in a house that suddenly had too much silence. Friends disappeared after the funeral. The church dropped off food for a week and then vanished. I was 68, retired, and hollowed out like a tree that once had a reason to stand. Before she passed, she grabbed my hand and said, "If things ever get ugly, promise me you'll keep something just for yourself." I didn't know what she meant. Until now. 2 months later, my daughter Emily called. She said I should move in with her in Greenville. "It'll be good for you, Dad. The kids would love it." I sold the house, boxed up the memories, and drove across 2 states for the chance to feel like someone again. When I arrived, my son-in-law Brad didn't offer a handshake. He stayed on the porch while I dragged my own suitcase inside. Emily gave me a one-armed hug and said, "The kids are upstairs. You'll be in the basement." That was the first time I felt it, like I had just walked into a mistake I couldn't undo. Brad walked me down a narrow staircase that smelled like fresh paint and unfinished promises. The basement had a futon, a thin rug, and a mini fridge humming like it knew it didn't belong. "There's your bathroom," he said, pulling a small silver key from his pocket. "We just like to keep things structured." I nodded, too tired to argue. The next morning, my back screamed from the futon's metal bar. I shuffled upstairs, craving coffee, maybe even conversation. Emily was at the stove, stirring something. Brad sat with his laptop, not looking up. I reached for the pantry door. "Going somewhere?" Brad asked without smiling. I paused. "Just grabbing coffee." "We prefer you ask first," he said flatly. "We're teaching the kids about boundaries." Kids, structure, boundaries. Emily didn't even glance at me. She just muttered, "He's right, Dad. You're not a guest. You're a burden." The word hit like a slap. Burden. I stood there, frozen, heart racing, breath shallow. Then I turned, walked back down the stairs, and didn't come up the rest of the day. That night, I sat alone in the basement, staring at my suitcase in the corner, realizing I hadn't unpacked. Because deep down, I already knew I wouldn't be staying. The basement became my world, a cold, silent world where I moved like a ghost, trying not to make noise. No one invited me to dinner. No one asked if I was okay. I started ordering food to the back door just to avoid seeing Brad's eyes roll whenever I walked upstairs. One evening, Brad asked if I could please keep my shoes in my assigned area. They were lined up neatly near the door, but apparently Mason had nearly tripped. Another night, Emily texted me at 10:43 p.m. "Can you walk quieter? The floor carries sound." I was wearing socks. I had flushed twice. I stopped moving. I started counting hours before I dared use the bathroom. I became an expert at silence. Then came the announcement, a 5-day family vacation, Destin, Florida. I asked if I could join and pay my way. Brad smiled like a politician and said, "It's a bonding trip, just us 4. I offered to watch the house. He replied, "You'll be here anyway." Saturday morning, they packed up. Before leaving, Brad came downstairs and unclipped the car keys from the hook. "Just in case," he said, "we don't want you getting lost." What he didn't know was, I'd already been lost for months. The moment their SUV turned the corner, I climbed the stairs. The fridge, a bottle of mustard, and a half-empty water. The pantry, padlocked. Out of instinct, I checked the trash. 2 untouched loaves of bread, a full rotisserie chicken, still warm when they threw it out. That wasn't carelessness, that was deliberate. That was a message. I sat at their spotless kitchen table, heart hammering, hands trembling. This wasn't neglect, it was punishment. I hadn't planned anything, but I moved like I had. Brad always bragged about his vault office, complete with a digital safe. He once showed off the code to me after too many beers, their wedding year, and his college number. I punched it in. The lock clicked. Inside, 2 watches, some petty cash, and a handgun in a foam case. I didn't touch the weapon. I took $250 in 20s, folded it into my wallet. Then I wrote a note on the back of an electric bill. You locked the food. You took the keys. I'm not your hostage. I'm not your burden. I stepped out the door without looking back, hailed a cab, and checked into a run-down motel that reeked of smoke and mold. That night, over fries and a cheap beer, I remembered what freedom tasted like. The motel smelled like cigarettes and old sorrow, but it was mine. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I had to shrink to fit inside someone else's life. I used part of the money my wife left me, the part she told me to keep just in case, and bought a rundown duplex in a quiet corner of Greenville. One side for me, the other? I wasn't sure yet. Then I met Miss Lean at a church food pantry. She was a single mum with 2 sons and eyes that looked like they hadn't closed in weeks. She flinched every time someone raised their voice. We talked for 5 minutes. I offered her the other side of the duplex for $5 a month. No contracts, no background checks. Just a roof and a second chance. She broke down in the parking lot. Said no one had ever helped her without expecting something back. That night, I gave her my wife's old couch, a microwave I found on Craigslist, and bunk beds for her boys. She cried again. I told her the truth. I'm not trying to save you. You're saving me. And just like that, I had something no one had given me in a long time, purpose. But purpose always draws shadows. For a while, things were quiet. Too quiet. Miss Lean and her boys moved in. They had a suitcase, a busted laptop, and a box of canned food. I helped where I could. Groceries, light fixtures, a second-hand kitchen table. Her kids laughed for the first time in weeks. Then, one Tuesday morning, I saw a grey SUV parked 5 houses down. Same make, same dents as Emily's. It didn't stay long, just sat there like it was watching. 2 days later, a plain envelope landed in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a photo. Me sitting on the porch, helping Miss Lien's boys build a birdhouse. Across the top, written in Sharpie, you replaced your grandkids with trash. My stomach turned. That night, someone slashed my tires. My neighbor across the street said he saw a man limping away in a hoodie. Brad had knee surgery last fall. I didn't call the police. I didn't want war. I wanted peace. But the look in Miss Lien's eyes when I showed her the photo, fear and guilt crashing together, told me one thing. We weren't being watched. We were being hunted. 3 days after the tire slashing, there was a knock at my door. Not a neighbor, not a delivery. Emily, hair in a messy bun, no makeup, eyes red like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door slowly. She didn't ask to come in, just shoved a manila folder into my chest. "This is a petition for guardianship," she said. "You're being manipulated. You've cut off your family, moved money to strangers. We can't let you destroy what Mum left behind." I opened it. Legal documents, her signature, a lawyer's name I didn't recognize. "Do you actually believe I've lost my mind, or is this just about the money?" I asked. She didn't answer, just turned and walked away. Inside, Miss Lean stood frozen, clutching her youngest's backpack. "They're coming for you," I said. "And they're going to come for you too." She whispered, "I don't care what they say. I'm not letting them take you down." The next morning, I called Mr. Carter, my new lawyer, and sent him the entire file. He filed a motion to dismiss the guardianship and advised I apply for a restraining order against Brad. "Keep records," he said. "Dates, footage, threats. This won't end clean." And he was right. Because 2 weeks later, Child Protective Services showed up on our doorstep. The CPS agents were polite, but their eyes scanned every corner of the duplex like they expected to find bruises or syringes. They asked Miss Lien's boys questions about meals, about sleep, about me. One of them even opened the fridge and snapped a picture. Another peeked into the boys' bedroom. Miss Lien stood stiff the entire time, her knuckles white, her voice calm. When they left, they said they'd follow up in a few days. That night, she broke down in the kitchen. "I knew it," she said. "I knew they'd use your love to come after us." Mr. Carter wasn't surprised. He said we needed to stop reacting and start digging. So I hired Mr. Hawkins, a private investigator. Within a week, he found it. Brad had opened a credit card in my name using my social security number. Over $6,500 spent, electronics, flights, restaurant bills, even a payment on the Destin Beach rental. He'd set up a P.O. box to hide the bills. We froze the account, filed a fraud report, and delivered a full binder of evidence to Mr. Carter. He smiled for the first time in weeks. "We don't just have a defense now," he said. "We have a weapon." 3 days later, a dead bird was left on my doorstep. Neck twisted, feathers soaked in dew. The security camera caught it all. A hooded figure, same limp as before. Brad had stopped hiding. Now he was sending messages. Brad was charged with identity theft. The police had the footage, the fraud report, the motive. His company fell apart within days. Clients bailed, partners distanced themselves. The man who once locked up rotisserie chicken to starve me now couldn't unlock his own future. Emily called, crying, said she never meant to hurt me, that she was scared, that Brad had lied. I said nothing for a while, then asked, "Where were you when he made me ask permission to eat?" She didn't answer. I ended the call. Weeks later, I signed the duplex over to Miss Lien. She broke down, hugged me like family. I left Greenville the next morning. No announcement, no goodbye. Now I live near Asheville. It's quiet. I grow tomatoes, walk rescue dogs. Nobody watches my every move. Sometimes I still think about Emily, the little girl who once asked me if birds ever get tired of flying. But that little girl is gone. And I finally understand. Blood doesn't make you family. Respect does. Respect. And when you stop letting people treat you like a burden, that's the day everything changes. Thanks for listening. If this story helped you unwind, don't forget to like and subscribe channel Reddit Stories to Fall Asleep too. There's a new tale waiting for you every night, right here. Sleep well.